Hello, my name is Ollie and this is my entry for the Nintendo UK #completed on Switch competition. Throughout 2018 I honestly didn't complete many games, however I would like to talk about my experience with a little game called Celeste. At the very start of 2018 I lost my job, my mental health deteriorated severely, and aside from the other struggles that these circumstances introduce, it also stopped me from playing and enjoying most video games. I'd load up the eShop on a daily basis, desperately searching for a game that grabbed my attention enough that would bring me out of my depression-induced stupor and motivate me to complete it. A few weeks pass and I start to see snippets of Celeste, ranging from tweets expressing excitement about this hard-as-nails 2D platformer to early coverage from news outlets regarding the game's focus on mental health and the way it represented its effect through gameplay. This immediately caught my attention and I delved deeper into videos and news articles building up hype for the game's release. I ultimately decided not to purchase Celeste on its release. As much as the narrative appealed to me, I sucked at platformers, and even industry veterans were having trouble with the steep, pun not intended, level of difficulty the game presented. More time passed and I still hadn't found a game to give me some small amount of pleasure in what ultimately was the worst period of my life. While staying with my parents for a week, I decided to finally start my journey to the peak of Celeste Mountain. The very moment I loaded into the first level of Celeste, I knew I'd made the right decision. Not since I was 12 or maybe 13 years old had I sat down with a new game and played for hours on end. Celeste broke this trend in the most spectacular way possible, gripping me so much that I completed it twice in just 3 days. Every step of Madeline's journey I found relatable, despite having never gone near a mountain in my life or even into Canada where Celeste Mountain resides. As her self-confidence fluctuated throughout her journey, so did mine. Just as I felt good about getting a grip on one set of platforming challenges, a new and much more difficult set would then be introduced. This is perfectly represented in the way that Madeline feels some small hope after reaching certain checkpoints, only to be laughed down at by the elderly woman that you meet at several points throughout Madeline's ascent of the mountain. This, as well as her own self-doubt, which later manifests into the main antagonist of the game, which is actually Madeline herself. With a relatively small amount of dialogue and cutscenes compared to the majority of game releases these days, Celeste still manages to deliver an emotionally gripping, satisfying and uplifting narrative, presenting a range of emotions from total self-worthlessness to embracing self-love to overcome one's own struggles. The gameplay itself tells the majority of the story. You make your way into a new screen at first glance, success seems impossible. Yet due to the deeply motivating soundtrack, the desire to help Madeline, and the lightning fast respawn time should you fail any given section of a level, you feel obliged to persevere and make your way to the peak of Mount Celeste, no matter what may stand in your path. This is the narrative, with all cutscenes and dialogue only serving to introduce new characters and some new game mechanics. After my aforementioned 2 playthroughs of Celeste, I felt my mind opened up and directed to a new path of recovery from my own mental health struggles. I sought support from friends and family, I began to eat more healthily, and even doubled down on the meditation sessions I'd been employing for around 6 months up at this point. All this from a video game made by just 2 guys, essentially, rather than a big AAA studio. As previously mentioned, I absolutely suck at platformers. I felt that the challenge of the main game itself was more than enough for me. I did dabble with the B-side content, but from the heavily ramped up difficulty, a little too much for myself. But there is obviously that content and the seaside content if you did fancy a challenge. Other players will no doubt find hours more enjoyment out of this additional content, and there is also some free DLC coming up any time now. However, I wouldn't say to take this as a slight against the game whatsoever. It is difficult, but just because I didn't complete the whole thing doesn't mean I was no less appreciated in what it did for me. It taught me that there was hope. It taught me to look after myself. It taught me that mental health issues can be overcome and ultimately defeated in time. Almost a year after the game's release, which is where we are now, I find myself a changed person. Admittedly, I'm far from normal, or what others would consider normal, but I'm no longer the shell of the person I'd become. I've embraced my inner struggles, begun to study for a new profession in software development, and I even bought my first apartment. Celeste rescued me, and for that, I thank it endlessly. Whether you use your Switch just for Fortnite, or if you're a hardcore Nintendo fan like myself, I cannot recommend Celeste enough. All of us can learn from this game, whether you're experiencing similar hardships to myself, or are 100% content in your daily life. You'll find new appreciation in your own existence, as well as the games industry as a whole, for the unmatched level of entertainment it brings to so many of us. Now that we're in 2019, I plan to complete many more games. I'm a good chunk into Octopath Traveler, and I'm eagerly anticipating Yoshi's Crafted World this spring. Whatever your taste in games may be, I implore you to give Celeste a try. Finally, I would like to personally thank Matt Thorson and Noel Berry for this wonderful creation, and I hope they will continue to build on the success of